DC.com. Speaking of changes of leadership, Tony P, now let's get to the other huge story that people all across DC are talking about.
Yes.
And that is, unfortunately, that disaster of a Commanders game yesterday. And now there are some fans out there wondering whether it's time for a little shakeup on this team as well. The Vikings embarrassed the Burgundy and Gold 31-0. You see the score right there yesterday. And to add insult to injury, it was this scene that had so many fans of the Commanders just collectively gasping, slapping their foreheads, whatever it was. Quarterback Jayden Daniels left the game hurt once again after taking a hard hit and landing on the same arm that he had hurt earlier in the season. Remember, he dislocated his elbow, his non-throwing elbow. But as of right now, head coach Dan Quinn says it shouldn't be a long-term issue. Take a listen.
He did kind of land directly, on his elbow. It's sore. The doctors evaluated him today. The good news for that, John, there's no long-term concerns, but we'll continue to monitor and, trying to take everything into account as the week goes. I don't have an update for you yet regarding playing. It's sore today, but the good news is no long-term, but I don't have an update as far as the game yet.
So no long-term issues, but no update as of this weekend. JD5 wasn't the only one to leave the field early, unfortunately, though, because veteran tight end Zach Ertz had to be carted off after taking a helmet to the knee. Coach Quinn confirmed today he is done for the season. The Commanders have now dropped 8 straight. They are 3-10 on the season. They'll face the Giants this Sunday. Like I said, no word if Jayden will be back on the field. But for more on the Commanders, Jayden's latest injury, whether he should have been out there at all, we want to get to our friend, award-winning sports journalist Kelsey Nicole Nelson, joining us now live. We wish it was under better circumstances.
We keep doing this to you.
You do. One of these
Karma does it.
Positive energy, you guys, because I think people think I'm just negative Nancy all the time.
No, it is absolutely not your fault. These are the cards which they have been dealt to you.
The gods have dealt this to us.
But obviously, going into the game yesterday, we talked to tons of fans ahead of time, and they were very split on whether he should play. Even if he was fully healthy, whether to put Jayden Daniels back in the game. They obviously this season, it hasn't gone the way fans hoped. There's still a lot, 4 games left in the season. But was it more important for him to get back out there and get the reps and learn something, or was it more important to protect him, in your opinion?
Oh my gosh, we are choosing violence early. I love it, Chris. So this is probably the hottest topic right now for sports fans in the DMV. I actually flew out of town this weekend out of DCA, so I was surrounded by a lot of Commanders fans who actually made the trip to Minnesota for the game. So I had a chance to talk to a lot of them, and had a chance last week to join your own Chad Ricardo on Game Time to talk about this. I will say this: Jayden Daniels in his second year, right? We know he's been unfortunately injury prone this season, but we also know the power of JD5. I still saw a lot of Jayden Daniels gear. Everyone was excited to have him back in terms of a fan perspective. And I think we do have to remember he is still young in the infancy. And remember, a lot of the talk going into this game was, of course, getting Noah Brown back on that football field. We know the Commanders had released Chris Moore to release a roster spot on that 53-man roster, even though I know Noah Brown underperformed in this game, but again, just coming back. And they were trying to find some type of continuity, right? Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel. I have said, and I have been on record, Chris, to say I did want to see Jayden Daniels back at least for some reps, but I actually did want to see Marcus Mariota play more for a couple reasons. One, I think the Commanders need to solidify a backup quarterback. We're in a league right now where quarterback play is so important, and there's a quarterback crisis. Look what's happening right now with the Indianapolis Colts. They're down 3 quarterbacks essentially, and calling on old man Rivers at 44 years old, right, to potentially come back and play. Marcus Mariota was signed to this team for an $8 million one-year deal. So I think, again, with what's happening with Jayden Daniels, we need to look at the backup quarterback play. Also looking, of course, next season, we're looking at the Commanders potentially having a top 5 pick right now, 39% odds of that for the draft. But all to say, I mean, of course, now it's easy to say, yes, probably he shouldn't have played, but really the play he got hurt on, remember, was a mistake by him, right? Throwing that interception and essentially trying to make a saving play.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, was that a learning experience in and of itself, that a franchise quarterback does not try to tackle a defensive end or safety who just picked him off on an angle where you are getting blindsided?
Oh, you hate it because at that point in the game, let's remember, folks, it was 14-0 at the half. Many fans had probably already gave up on the game then, right? 24-0 after third quarter. You didn't want to see that, but I also understand the heroics because he is a gamer, right? Jayden Daniels wants the best for this team. But the biggest kind of knock on JD5 his entire time in Washington is him protecting his own self from his own greatness. And so you didn't like to see that, but at the same time, I mean, if he didn't do it, we'd be complaining about that too, Chris, right? Like he just gave up on the play. So I feel like sometimes you can't win. You hate to see JD5 down, but let's be honest, the team is officially out of the playoffs now. I know it hurts. They are one of 9 teams from last season that's officially out, which means all the other playoff teams last season, folks, they're still doing well. The Commanders not being one of those teams. So it just hurts right now, especially because all the remaining games, you're looking at those divisional games. You hate to lose to division rivals, and so that's what it looks like is going to happen, unfortunately.
And of course, you just mentioned again that very sad news that the Commanders are now out of the playoffs. We did see earlier this year that Dan Quinn took over defensive calling duties and made a shift in the coaching. Do you sense now with this continued slide throughout the season, and we're out of the playoffs, going into next year with a high pick, do you sense that there's going to be a potential shakeup with more coaching decisions and potential firings as well as personnel changes? Or do you sense that in the building that this just may be a fluke because we got hit with the injury bug this year?
Yeah, I mean, the injury bug will always kind of be, a little asterisk on this season, Tony P, right? We have to be honest with ourselves. The Commanders were just dealt some very bad cards, and now dealt them again. You talked about the Zach Ertz injury. And remember, that was such a big loss. I've been calling him all season Mr. Reliable. He was the second leading receiver on this Commander squad, right? So you're down somebody who was very productive. On the defensive side, there have been a lot of questions about, Joe Witt and obviously Dan Quinn stepping in. You just gave up 313 yards to a struggling, before this game, Minnesota Vikings team and A.J. McCarthy, who many people were asking questions about. You give up 162 yards on the ground. But again, Tony P, me and you have discussed this being an aging defense. So I do think there will be questions. I do think something's going to have to change because this new ownership group has said, we need new in Washington. And honestly, the last time I really see fans like being this depressed was before the Jayden Daniels days, right? I worked for the team during those days. So I know what it was like before those days. So all that to say, I do think there is going to be something that has to change. And probably the defense is what you are going to be looking at. And that's kind of why, of course, these next couple of games as we end the season are going to be crucial if fans are going to keep any hope in this Commander squad. And yeah, defensively, the Commanders did not improve. Again, you gave up 31 points, and then on offense, you couldn't score anything. And let's remember also, you guys, there was they had a 12-minute drive. A 12-minute drive.
Still could score.
98 yards. You just can't allow that. Any defensive guy is going to be bad at that.
Right.
So I apologize. I stepped away to check on some breaking news. But you may have covered this. But what do you kind of want to see from this team moving forward into these final 4 games? Do you want to see them kind of play spoiler for some of their NFC East rivals because they were playing the Giants, the Eagles twice, and Dallas? Do you want to see them playing for pride, or do you want to see them playing for a draft pick?
Oh my gosh. Dan Quinn talked about, this team just needing to get some continuity. So I just need them to get some type of consistency in something. He talked about better communication, better flow, better timing. So honestly, I mean, yes, for the fans, you need to play for something. You want some pride on that squad. But honestly, I think you're really playing for the next man up mentality, meaning who deserves to stay on this squad. We're looking at, there's a good amount of going to be free agents after this season. So Washington has some personnel decisions to make. I think the other part of this, like you said, I mean, if you're from the DMV area, these rivalries are huge, and right now the only team you're better than in the division is the New York Football Giants, and Giants have a lot of issues going on themselves. As we look at that. But then let's also remember, the Cowboys right now are one of the hottest teams in football, right? And then the Eagles, I know they're currently playing right now as we talk. So all that to say, I just think there's a lot there.
And losing 7-3, in case anyone out there was wondering. 5.5 minutes left in the second.
That might make some people happy, Chris, in the DMV area. But all that to say, I mean, I think at this point, you're just playing for pride, right? Yeah. You need something to salvage. You need morale in that locker room. And let's be honest, I think for Dan Quinn, these next couple of games are crucial as well, just to ensure that the Commanders have the right man leading the charge.
Right. And now what is the feeling inside the locker room among those players who were so amped last year? They built this team through a lot of camaraderie. Has that camaraderie shifted, do you think, or have they still kept that attitude together even in this struggling season?
Yeah, I think one of the most important and kind of one of the most pivotal moments of the game that I remember was when Zach Ertz went down and was on that card. Do you guys remember who came over to him? Marcus Mariota, and how just
Yeah.
emotional he was. And I think people have to remember this team is very close. Despite what's happening on the football field, again, they ride for each other. They know they're better than what their record shows. So all that to say, I think the guys still have it. They love seeing some guys get back. And honestly, they hate this outcome too, right? They're disappointed in themselves. They want to get better. So all in all, I still expect them to compete. And honestly, when you have nothing to play for and another team is playing for something, I do think that kind of changes the mentality, right? And let's also remember, football is a business. These guys are also playing for contracts and money, Chris and Tony P. So what you do still does matter. Speaking of which, remember, Jayden Daniels will be eligible for a contract extension after year 3. So this was also a pivotal year for him as we think about his future in Washington and as we think about a franchise quarterback. So just want to put that out there.
Exactly.
That everything
Next year, baby.
does matter
That's right.
in
Yeah.
football.
Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, hopefully, things are better, next season. But sports journalist Kelsey Nicole Nelson, thank you so much for spending some time with us, breaking
Always
this
a
down,
pleasure.
and playing along when I choose violence.
That's the kind of show we have here.
That's right. We still got 4 weeks to go, so we might be calling on you again soon. Thank you.
Please.
Have a great night.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. All right, Tony P. We'll have